My gosh, everyone. I have just. I don't even know what I did. I just. Welcome to Movie Opinions again, and today I'm going to talk about Food Fight. Food Fight, Food Fight, Food Fight. For those of you who don't know, there is an interesting history behind this movie. It came out in the year 2012, yet it was originally supposed to come out 10 years before. Why was it delayed 10 years? Simple. There were some setbacks, money, and someone allegedly stole the film's files and all that, which somehow resulted in the movie taking another 10 years to come out. Yeah, that should speak volume. And it cost $65 million to make this movie. $65 million. Keep that in mind as I talk about this movie. Anyway, Food Fight. Let's talk about the movie itself. It was a such just well, let me explain. So this movie takes place in a supermarket, where apparently after it closes down for the night, the market turns into a city where the icons of the grocery products, like Mr. Clean, Mrs. Buttersworth, those kind of characters, all mingle around and talk to each other. In the cities, there's a crime fighter known as Dex Dog Detective who hunts down the crime. However, one day when his girlfriend goes missing, he becomes very depressed and opens up a club. And then that happens 6 months later when an evil brand comes and tries to take over the supermarket called Brand X. So Dex has to stop them. That's the plot. Did it make any sense? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. The plot in this movie is terrible. This is an animated movie, mind you, and while it's simple and in theory good for kids, any kind of plots should just, it should be appealing to everyone, not just kids who are like easily pleasable in a way. No offense to kids. But, that's not the main problem with this movie. Oh no. This is an animated movie, and this has to be the absolute worst animation I have ever seen in a CG film. It is so choppy, so blurry, so bad with the lip syncing, so bad with the movement of the characters. Just seriously, when the characters talk, they flail their arms around and they jump up in legs and stuff. Even for the simplest task, they just spin around and wave their arms, and just it's just so bothering. And just the CG is terrible. And I swear, sometimes that the characters, like near the end of the movie, they change, like they're a few shades darker than they originally were. I swear that. And the characters themselves, they don't look very well. They look like plastic dolls. They look like they're made of plastic most of the time when you zoom in on them. And most of their faces and are lifeless and just like they're crash test dummies. Like Mr. Clean is in this movie a little bit, and like for 5 times. And whenever you see him, his face looks like it's plastic. It looks like it's on a mannequin. And I haven't even bothered to discuss how many plot holes this story has. So many plot holes and unresolved conflicts and pointless characters. There are times when characters will appear, do absolutely nothing, and then they will never appear again. Or they will appear like in the beginning, and like only later in the movie again, they will come up for some reason, for no reason at all. Because that was actually an oxymoron, I apologize. And just, it's so terrible. The plot alone, it just is not very good at all. And I've talked about how awful the animation CG is. Seriously, this is the worst CG ever, and it's 2012. There is no excuse. There are movies made in the late 80s, early 90s that had better CG than this. Seriously, just it's inexcusable. And $65 million also inexcusable, the way that is. And the characters, they have interesting voice actors. The main character, as I already said, Dex Detective, he is voiced by Charlie Sheen. And his best friend, Daredevil Dan, is voiced by Wayne Brady, and his girlfriend is voiced by Hilary Duff. And the main antagonist is voiced by Eva Longoria. And there are some other uh, celebrities like voicing, like Christopher Lloyd is one of the voices I remember, and some others. So they have an all-star cast back then. But today, I'm pretty sure Charlie Sheen is kind of a joke, more so than he was back then. You know. The voices are all right for some of the characters, but that's really the only thing that was remotely likable. The fact is, this film is also quite boring, in addition to being very, very poorly animated, having a very bad story that makes no sense, continuity's all bad, and all that. It just feels like it goes on forever. This movie is 90 minutes, mind you, but it feels like it takes 3 hours. I was so bored halfway through the movie. I couldn't even believe there was another half. The final conflict is a third of the movie. Just really? And there's so much padding, so many scenes that didn't even contribute one bit to the plot that are there for no reason at all. I mean, seriously. And some of these characters that do that, they have no point. Some of them are just, ugh. And another thing, there are this film. I don't know how to describe it. It's quite sexual in some areas. It is supposed to be a kids movie in theory, but there are so many sexual scenes that just it makes no sense. Like some of the characters, you wonder how they made it into a kids movie. So many things the characters say. Like there are some times where the characters like they make these awful puns. Yeah, I'm one to talk because I like puns and all, but sometimes they make these puns that just make no sense at all, and that's I didn't think I would hate puns ever, but this movie, yeah, it's making me dislike puns in use. I still like puns, but the way this movie used them, just no. And some of these puns, they're like one word away from a curse or something like that, and just why? It's supposed to be a kids movie in theory, so why would you do that? Look, oh my gosh. And there's so much else to talk about that's really bad in this movie. Like towards the end, I swear some of the characters, like their voice actors use their mics built into the computer. Cause I swear some of the characters' voices then they drop in volume and they sound terrible. Like did the studio run out of money that day? I don't know because it just they sound awful there. And just there's really not much else to say. The characters are really bad, forgettable. The animation is so awful. The plot makes no sense. And just, I could go on and on about how awful this movie is. It goes on and on and on and on and on. It feels like forever. And just, ugh, it makes no sense at all. And I just don't ever want to see this movie again. I might one day with my friends for like some kind of torture thing, because I did see this with a friend, but just this movie was terrible. I it just I'm not even kidding. At the end of the movie, I had a headache because of this movie, and like halfway through, I was like just lying down on the verge of, you know, passing out, just because it's so bad. I'm not even kidding. This movie, in addition to being really bad and laughably bad in some areas, bored the heck out of me in some areas. Just with, there's so much bad about this movie, it's kind of hard to accept it all at once. I mean, at least with, like, The Legend of Hercules, which is really bad, there were some elements of it that were just so bad it was funny. With Food Fights, some elements are so bad it are funny, but other elements are just bad, and they're not even funny bad. It's just bad bad. Just, I could go on and on and on forever about this movie being how bad it is, but I think I've had enough. If you want to see more reviewers go into depth about why this movie is bad, watch the Nostalgia Critic or JonTron review this, because they would probably do better than I am. I'm just going over what I thought of this movie. I hated it. It was funny bad, but I still hated this movie. It was one of the worst an hour and a half, hour and 90 minutes of my life. I will never get them back, and just. And now I'm finally going to implement my new rating system. So with that being said, this movie gets my lowest rating ever, which is burned to the ground. Take it away, Flame Hyenard, and I'll see you guys next time.
Burn! Burn! Burn to the ground! Burn! Burn! Burn!